Hello, and welcome back to Something to Noodle On. I'm your host, Mac, an average 30-something exploring the complex questions that keep us awake at night. Lately, I've been thinking about how much I miss being a kid. Life was so much simpler back then. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to grow up. Adulthood just seems like an endless list of chores and responsibilities. But is being an adult really supposed to be no fun at all? It's almost as if we're supposed to abandon everything that made us happy for the first 18 years of our lives. This examination of the past and present should certainly give us something to noodle on. Okay. Think back to those long forgotten days when we were kids and all the adults around us seemed like they were just so cool. They didn't have anyone telling them what to do or eat or making them go to bed when they simply weren't tired. Adults ran the world, made all the decisions, and bought all the awesome stuff they wanted, whenever they wanted. Plus, when someone ticked them off, they could shout the longest string of bad words that they could combine without getting into any sort of trouble at all. So of course we were going to grow up thinking adulthood was the best thing in the world. But if adult me could go back in time, they would probably slap some sense into child me. Because here's the reality. Adulthood brings with it too many responsibilities, while childhood is truly our one chance to be absolutely carefree. Remember N64 Kid? He tore through the wrapping paper of that gift to find the thing he wanted most in the world and just flipped the F out. I've never seen an adult react with even half as much enthusiasm for anything as N64 Kid on Christmas Day circa 1998. So when did we start losing our excitement for the joys of childhood? I have to believe it took more than just wanting to curse and spend tons of money to shift my focus forward to the day I became an official adult. But I know at some point, being a kid kind of just lost its luster. I still love Christmas and all, but it simply doesn't feel the same as it did when I was 8 years old and really hoping to discover one of the best games of all time, Spyro, waiting for me under the Christmas tree. If anything, Christmas as an adult is one of the most stressful times of the year because there's just so much to do to pull it off without a hitch, especially if you're a parent. These days, in general, life just doesn't inspire the playfulness it used to. Is this the natural way that things are supposed to go down? That we have to shed our childhood silliness in favor of an adulthood with endless responsibilities and tidal waves of misery? God, I sure hope not. That would suck. Before we really get into this, I just want to say that as adults, we should be able to spend our time, money, and effort on whatever we damn well please. It sucks that it's so expensive to leave home and become independent members of society, especially in today's economy and housing market. There are just so many necessities we have to pay for, such as rent or mortgage, or just for a living space to protect us from the elements. Basic utilities to make our homes functional, a million kinds of insurance for those just-in-case scenarios, and groceries to keep ourselves and our dependents alive. Can we just talk about egg prices? It's insane. Heck, even entertainment is getting more and more expensive. And it seems like nothing is free anymore. Public areas like parks and libraries are starting to change access fees. And rare is the community event that doesn't require some sort of donation or cover charge. So yeah, unless we're lucky enough to win the lottery or inherit stupid amounts of money, we have to work to live our lives, mostly free from the watchful gaze of our ever-discerning parents or guardians. It's just one of the harsh realities of life. We spend so much of our time after reaching the age of maturity just doing whatever it takes to secure the resources necessary to survive. But when did we decide that being a grown-up shouldn't be any fun at all? It's one thing to submit to the demands of adulthood responsibilities, toiling away at monotonous, soul-sucking labor for the sake of a paycheck. But once we clock out at the end of the day, it should be time to cut loose, forget about all that corporate noise, and simply enjoy the good things life has to offer. I also think we owe it to ourselves to be true to the inner child that our past selves promised we'd buy all the things we wanted when we finally had our own money. We all had that one thing we really wanted but never got because our parents refused to purchase it for whatever reason. We swore to ourselves that since our parents weren't budging, someday we'd be in control and we would spend our own money on it. We just had to have it. It was the one thing that would have made our childhood complete. If you carried this sort of goal into adulthood but still haven't checked it off your list, this is me encouraging you to finally buy it, along with anything else you promised yourself as a child. So go get that N64 or that collector's Lego set. Though, of course, financial responsibilities come first. But once those are taken care of, we shouldn't feel guilty for rewarding ourselves with things that make us happy, even if it's a past version of ourselves. So yes, pay the bills, buy healthy groceries, and take care of yourself and your dependents. But with free time or extra money, who really benefits if you deprive yourself of something you really want? Or if you buy that something and feel guilty for enjoying your life? I know for a lot of my friends, myself included, this entails spending money on things like video games, both old and new. I personally collect N64 games. Some people collect trading cards like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, or fun little trinkets that represents our fandom, such as Lego Star Wars builds, The Office Funko Pops, or Hello Kitty car seat covers, whatever it is. It's easy to look at this stuff and think, this is for kids. But even if it is, so what? Sure, our interests change as we get older and we're exposed to new things, but some of us are just as obsessed with certain things now as we were when we were much younger. Some things we just never grow out of. And you know what? Why should we? It doesn't even have to be a particular object. Perhaps you told yourself that you'd one day ride all the rides at Six Flags, or that you'd swim with a pod of wild dolphins in the ocean. It could even be that your life's goal is to scarf down a basket of fresh churros while traversing Disney's Frontierland. For stuff like this, you could set aside a fun fund to give yourself something to look forward to. Just don't forget to actually spend it. We work too hard for our money for it to just sit in a bank account until we're too old to enjoy it. Go on a shopping spree and finally get that one thing you've always had your eye on. Take a fun trip so you can try something new, or eat all the decadent foods you want as you explore a new terrain. The truest thing about money is that you can't take it with you when you pass. So spend it now while you're living and can actually enjoy it. In conversations like this one, we often hear people say to embrace your inner child. But what does that really look like? Are we just saying get a hobby, or are we using the idea of embracing our inner child as an excuse to waste our money on frivolous things? You know, I've seen some pretty amazing collections taking up space in my friends' houses. Shelves stuffed with video and board games, entire walls of Funko Pops, and even some impressive basement arsenals of really cool medieval weaponry. And I think the most common question that pops up for my collector friends is, do you actually play with any of this stuff, or do you just keep it for looks? There's almost always some level of judgment behind this question, as if being a collector is probably okay, but mature adults don't still play with things. Even if the answer is yes, I'm sure many say no to save face or avoid any awkward and embarrassing follow-up questions. It's actually pretty sad that an adult might feel embarrassed for someone else to find out that they still play with toys or something to that effect. There is plenty of literature out there that shows that children aren't the only ones who benefit from play. Adults absolutely do too. In fact, there is an entire institute dedicated to the study of play and the ways it enriches our lives. According to the founder of said institute, play is the state of mind that one has when absorbed in an activity that provides enjoyment and suspension of sense of time. Play doesn't necessarily have to be running around, kicking a ball on a field, or pretending that you're a race car driver and that box your mom just threw out is your tricked out car, though it certainly can be. Play encompasses lots of categories, from collecting trading cards to enjoying competitive games, from telling stories to building and creating things with your own two hands, and from discovering new places and ideas to just outright being silly and making others laugh. When you put it into this perspective, it sounds like play is something most of us already do in some form or another anyway. Attaching a stigma to it or defining it as something only children do undermines its roles in our lives. I told my therapist that I started doing Amp Guard, which for you normies out there is a form of LARP or live action role play. Yes, that same kind of LARP from the movie Role Models. But my therapist was thrilled. She said most adults don't get awarded for play. Instead, we're told that playing is for kids, but so many studies out there show how playing through all stages of life is good for our brains and mental state of being as we grow older. Simply put, it's healthy for adults to nurture their inner child or sense of play. We've already emphasized how adulthood is a never-ending cycle of employment, household chores, and fiscal responsibilities. Blah. These things are all stressors in our lives. We have bosses to please, families to take care of, and of course, bills to pay. Falling behind in any one of these areas almost always negatively affects how things are going in the others. Luckily for us, engaging in play is an excellent way to reduce the stresses of our modern world. Whether we're admiring our Pokemon cards or building to scale Lego replicas of the Hogwarts castle, we play because it's fun and relaxing and leaves us in a better mental state of mind. It distracts us from the problems we're currently facing for at least a little while and can especially help us to unwind after a hard day at work as we leave the productivity expectations and performance metrics behind at the office. Hard at work is often used to describe us when we put our heads down and focus on a task, but we can equally be hard at play. This is because engaging in play also builds cognitive flexibility and develops our ability to see things in different ways, especially when problem solving is involved. Pretty much any time a study comes out that shows how video games are bad for us, that study is refuted by the massive body of evidence that shows how puzzle-based games or obstacle-laden platformers improve our mental capacity. Even games that aren't designated as learning games can present us with linguistic riddles or test our knowledge of physics as we seek an exit in a 2D environment. This kind of play is often very satisfying when the challenges we face are overcome and we take the knowledge we've learned into the next stage. Engaging in play also helps us relate to those around us. Pretty much any activity can be shared. Board games can be competitive or co-op. Jigsaw puzzles are easy for multiple people to join in, and trading card games allow players to not just compete against each other, but also compare and trade cards to complete their decks. Plus, it's often easy to find communities of like-minded people to join both online and in person. so you can get to know others while playing games, sharing knowledge, and discussing ideas together. Since I've joined AmpGuard, I've made so many new friends. Honestly, some of these people I'd consider family. We don't just play battle games together. We also meet up for board game nights, go to concerts together, hike, and watch movies. Anytime one of my friends says they're missing something in life, I pull up the closest AmpGuard park to them and say, all right, go here at Sunday at 11 a.m. You'll get to feel like a kid again and meet 20 other people who are cool as hell. Seriously, LARPing is my favorite thing in the entire world, and I would be really sad to give it up. I found it during a period of darkness in my life, and it pulled me back into the light. The best way to describe what AmpGuard is, it's like capture the flag, but with a sword and magic abilities. It's like if your Dungeons & Dragons character was IRL playing capture the flag or insert other battle game here. Feeling the joy of being a kid again once a week makes all the hard adulting we do worth it. And as we grow older, we all too often lose the creativity we had as kids when we depended on our imaginations to bring the world around us to life. Engaging in play helps us bring that inner spark back to life. Remember tea parties with our stuffed animals? Or how hiking through the woods was basically like journeying through Narnia? Millennials like me and all the generations that came before us know all too well the experience of having to make something out of nothing. There were days when our parents would toss us out of the house and we'd have to make up our own games in the backyard or else be left to stare at the cracks in the sidewalk. We pretended sticks were swords and berries were magnificent feasts. Every bird that flew by was a spy for the enemy, and every day we had to save the world from ending. And always, the floor was hot lava. Maybe we don't relate to those stories anymore, but there is still plenty of room for world-shaping creativity in our adult lives. Think of board games like Gloom, for example, where describing tragic events as they befall your character is just as much as part of the game as playing cards and stacking modifiers on your opponent's characters to put them in unfavorable conditions. And of course, no one can argue against the prevailing power of Dungeons & Dragons in making player-driven stories come to life on the spot. Compared to the stories our imaginations are capable of writing, reality just kind of sucks. You know, as much as we hate to admit it, sometimes life is just boring as shit. So why would we want to give up our powers of imagination? Even if role-playing games aren't your thing, there are plenty of other forms of play that either rely on creativity or inspire you to come up with something new. Sometimes it's even a matter of survival. How many stories have you heard about people who found themselves in dire conditions, but were able to keep going because they could dream up a better life? Creativity has the ability to bring us hope when everything around us is crumbling into despair. So it's worthwhile to make sure we are always capable of adopting a creative mindset. So basically, fuck that part of society promoting the idea that in order to be successful, functioning adults, we need to suck all the joy and color out of life. A friend of mine recently had to replace all the furniture and a lot of the decorations in their home after a flood. Instead of simply buying new versions of the same items they had lost, they decided it was time for a change. One of their more noticeable decor changes was in the downstairs bathroom, where the bright pink, purple, and turquoise mermaid tail shower curtains, rugs, and toilet covers were all swapped out and replaced with that clean white, sky blue, and soft black solids and florals. Their partner even joked and made the comment, "So does this mean we're adults now?" Mind you, they were 30-something adults before this switch, but that comment perfectly aligns with what we're discussing today. Why is it that bright, colorful mermaid tails were inferior to the neutral blues and grays? Simply because of my friend's age. And why is it when we look at beautiful homes and magazines and Insta that all these interiors are shown with beiges and neutrals? Unless we're looking at a kid's room, you barely see neon colors represented. You know, as kids, we really had free reign of the rainbow, and nothing we owned ever had to match anything else of ours. But if you compare the kid version to the adult version of any product, you'll see that the fun and whimsical color of childhood just disappears when those products are marketed towards adults. Kids' bed sheets splashed with cartoon characters, funky shapes, and bright colors that don't even have names. And most of the time, the bed sheets were made up with completely different blankets and comforters. No consistency or sense of style or order in any manner. Adult bedding sets, on the other hand, monochromatic or at most duo-colored, occasionally textured with sensible geometric patterns or florals if additional color is allowed at all. And what about clothing? As kids, we could pair our plastic red rain boots with our bright green corduroys, mix and match our pink and yellow socks, or wear both neon stripes and polka dots at the same time. And the only ones who really cared about our outlandish fashion choices were our horrified parents. But as adults, we're expected to at least wear matching clothing. And the further up the corporate ladder we go, the more muted, tailored, and structured our outfits must be in order to be seen as professional. Business suits are rarely colorful and typically come in dark blues, grays, and blacks. Power colors, as they're commonly referred to. Whatever. It's impossible to mistake a meeting of CEOs and shareholders with a classroom full of preschoolers based on clothing style alone. Real talk, this isn't so much about color as it is about what color conveys. Without getting too deep into color psychology, our childhoods were set on a backdrop painted with warm, bold, energizing colors. We're talking yellows, orange, pinks, purples, neons, and other brightly pigmented colors. These colors are associated with happiness and optimism. The more of these colors that we combine, the more joyous we feel. Like the Holi festival in India, where revelers throw brightly colored waters and powders at each other to celebrate the coming of spring. The monochromaticity of maturity, by comparison, is dull, drab, and joyless. Beyond this, consider the behaviors we had as kids that are unacceptable in most adult things. How often was it that we were told by our parents to walk and not run whenever we entered the adult world of running errands? Whether we were at the bank or at the grocery store, these places demanded discipline and decorum. Even things like laughing out loud, shouting, or just generally being noisy. These things were encouraged on the playground, but not so much at a restaurant sitting with mom and dad. It's odd and often humorous to see adults running around haphazardly, laughing their heads off and being silly for no apparent reason. Think of how often mom and dad used to join in our neighborhood games of tag or hide and seek. Probably not too frequently. With kids around, at least they'd have some excuse to have a little bit of boisterous fun. But when the kids aren't around, no dice. Besides, there is nothing inherently bad about these things, like playing video games, collecting Pokemon cards, building Lego sets, or any of those other traditionally kid-like activities. As a friend of mine likes to say to people who admonish her for reading kids' books, who do you think writes these stories in the first place? Adults do. The same is true of every item you find on the shelves when you wander down the toy aisle at Walmart. They might be intended for children, but adult imaginations and hands are bringing these products to life. It's almost as if adults know what kids like because they were once children themselves. Imagine that, right? Until kids start making their own games and toys, everything they play with is going to have a hint of adult logic and experiences woven into the very fabric of its being. Plus, how many parents pass on their old toys to their kids or decide to purchase new copies of old games because they think their kids will get as much fun out of them as they did decades before? Even in our digital dependent current times, many classic board games like chess and checkers are still popular, having been passed down from grandparent to child to grandchild, connecting generation after generation through shared moments and memories. What's sad, though, is how so many of the adults creating these magical childhood experiences often feel the need to self-identify as a child at heart, as if somehow excusing themselves for not having grown up in the way society expects of them. Maybe this is a hot take, but in this regard, I think men often have it worse because of the tendency that exists to assign negative or even dangerous qualities to men who maintain an interest in the positive development of children throughout their lives. Like, nobody bats an eye at a female kindergarten teacher, but a male kindergarten teacher, some people automatically see this as a red flag. Or how about the common depiction of toy inventors and even Santa Claus himself as either warmly eccentric and childlike or overly jolly? It's as if men, especially ones in positions of authority, are required to be giant kids at heart, or else they're secretly aiming to harm the young ones under their care, even though that's not typically the case. Besides, what is it about marveling at the bells and whistles of a fancy new toy, or even dancing around and singing songs to entertain and educate children, that makes them worth the extra scrutiny? Playful shouldn't have to equal predatory. Besides, if we break down the actions that go into some of these more traditionally child-oriented activities, we'll see that they're things that we do as adults all the time, even in our professional careers. For example, plenty of video games incorporate logic puzzles and problem solving as ways to advance the story. Adults utilize logic and complex problem-solving techniques every day. If we just stopped anytime we were met with an obstacle, we'd cease to function as a society. And there really isn't much difference between building with Lego bricks and literally any form of mechanical assembly, aside from scale or perhaps the level of skill involved. No matter what size, shape, or material they're made from, we still have to fit each part together based on the laws of physics and be able to understand instruction sets to make sure every bit and bolt is properly positioned and secured. It basically boils down to this. The best kids' toys are essentially simplified versions of adult concepts, designed as practice for later in life when we're building that IKEA furniture. Let's just hope all the pieces are included. But even if we've been doing something for years, it never hurts to go back to the basics or pay another visit to Tutorial Island. As long as we take the time to remember that we are adults with important responsibilities and avoid getting too sucked into our diversions, we can still live healthy, happy lives that contribute positively to society. So go ahead, dig up that Minecraft diamond, chase that shiny Jigglypuff, and build that Lego Millennium Falcon. There's no real shame in it. It seems to me that maturity is just another cultural factor that is determined by the members of society. We are the ones who decide what is suitable for kids and what should be reserved for adults. Wouldn't it be better for us to define adulthood in a way that prioritizes being happy instead of being sensible or professional? It's like how people come down super hard on those so-called Disney adults. You know, those devoted Disney fans who collect all the merch and plan lavish vacations to the Disney resorts for themselves or their families, despite being solidly in their 30s and beyond. Sure, sometimes they take it a bit too far when their behavior is actually disruptive and damaging to those around them. But the same is true of people in any fandom. Sports fans can get way too rowdy in the stands. Gamers can go overboard with their trash talk, and political campaign supporters can turn hope into hatred with a single poster or sign. As long as people behave in a way that is courteous and unharmful to those around them, I say let them like what they want to like, instead of putting a timer on how long they're allowed to express their enjoyment of something that they might have grown up with their entire lives. There's really no need for shaming adults because they carry a Tinkerbell adorned tote bag or because they designed a Harry Potter themed marriage proposal for their significant other. If we as a society can define what constitutes maturity, then why should we allow our definition of maturity to exclude any type of silly fun? Sure, wine tasting in Napa Valley can be an enjoyable experience, and one we can't legally participate in as kids. But so can dressing up like a fictional character and engaging in battle with foam weapons. Hint, hint, you should totally join Amp Guard. Hint, hint. Plenty of adult-oriented activities also happen at LARPing events, I assure you. And more importantly, why should we have to take down our boy band posters in favor of abstract art? Listen, NSYNC is on their way back to the top of the music industry, and I don't even have a life-size poster of Justin Timberlake to scream at anymore. But good thing my boring-ass kitchen rugs and placemats all match though, right? This all reminds me how the Charles Dickens story, A Christmas Carol, isn't just about a bitter old man. It's about a man who spent his entire life focusing on the things that, in the end, truly didn't matter, like amassing great personal wealth. It warped his sense of humanity and led to the miserably unkind man we are introduced to at the beginning of the story. When it comes down to it, I'd rather we all live our lives like a stupid buddy comedy than a depressing dystopian drama about the bleakness of humanity. Have you seen Children of Men? Because holy shit, that's the most depressing movie I've ever seen. And considering that death is completely devoid of color, I'm all for embracing the rainbow and filling our lives with the joy that we want to while we still can. I know I'm not the only person in favor of handing over the reins to our inner child. The current popularity of nostalgia marketing is evidence enough of this. There are loads of sellers out there who capitalize on the kids at heart and the people trying to hold on to the last vestiges of their childhood. They market items that bring back memories of a simpler time, targeting consumers who finally have the finances to buy those things they wanted back then. Who can't deny the inexplicable urge to buy an Easy Bake Oven despite having a fully functional range of kitchen appliances that generate more cooking power than, a light bulb? Pokemon cards are once again in the impulse aisles at Walmart. There are groups and pages with tons of followers dedicated to 90s nostalgia on Facebook. And some of our favorite actors who we watched every day in middle school now host podcasts with catchy titles based on the shows that made them famous. Even the king and queen of classroom accessories are churning out new products in their distinctly familiar yet oddly contemporary styles. You can go right now and buy a Trapper Keeper 2025 day planner, as well as Lisa Frank phone cases, smartwatch bands, and wireless chargers. Like most other things in life, feeding our inner child is about reaching a healthy balance. There is no rule that says we can't work on our investment portfolios and Pokemon card binders at the same time. It's not even that one activity is superior to the other. It's just that maintaining joy is essential for us to thrive in a world where the crushing weight of responsibility threatens to blot us out. So why should we have to adopt a brand new set of joy enhancers when the ones from our childhood suit us just fine? I hope this episode gave you something to noodle on and you too feel like you're able to feed your inner child. Or at least start if we've inspired you to pick up an old toy that you loved from childhood, or join LARP, hint, hint. I just want to express the importance of never feeling like you have to grow up. And don't you dare tell a child that something is too baby for them. Let them experience childhood just a little bit longer before adulthood crushes their souls like the rest of us. On that note, if you have something you want to share with us, send us a tweet at @apod to Noodle On or join our Discord. Until next time, bye friends!